While most of Southeast Asia struggles with 2 to 3% growth, one nation just clocked 6.2% GDP expansion in the first quarter of 2025, and it's not Singapore or Vietnam. For decades, the Philippines was dismissed as nothing more than a remittance economy, a country that exported its best minds to keep families fed back home. Now, something has shifted. Global investors are quietly calling Manila the next Jakarta, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. This isn't a story about government propaganda or cherry-picked statistics. This is about real people whose lives have been transformed by an economic revolution that even the experts didn't see coming. If you want to understand the economies shaping your future, hit subscribe. We break down what the headlines won't tell you, the patterns, the risks, and the opportunities that actually matter. Let me introduce you to Maria Santos. She's 52 years old, and for the past 18 years, she's worked as a domestic helper in Dubai. Every month, Maria sends £800 back to her family in Cebu. That money pays for her children's education, her parents' medical bills, and keeps the family home from falling apart. Maria's story isn't unique. She's one of 10 million Filipinos working overseas, collectively sending £25 billion back home every single year. For 4 decades, this was the Philippines. Families survived not because the local economy created jobs, but because someone left to find work abroad. Sons became seafarers. Daughters became nurses in London or caregivers in Hong Kong. The remittances kept people alive, but they strangled something critical, the development of local industries that could actually employ people at home. Here's the problem with remittance dependency that no one talks about. When families know money is coming from abroad, they stop taking risks. Why start a business when your brother in Canada sends enough to get by? Why push for better local wages when overseas work pays 10 times more? A 2019 study by the Asian Development Bank found that remittance-dependent economies grew 1.8% slower annually than export-driven peers. The Philippines wasn't building wealth, it was managing survival. Then COVID hit, and the money stopped flowing. That's when everything changed. In 2020, remittances dropped 17%. Millions of families faced a terrifying reality. No money from abroad meant no food on the table. The government had 2 choices: let the economy collapse or finally do what should have been done decades ago, build an economy that works for people who stay home. The Duterte administration launched the Build program, a £140 billion infrastructure spending plan that ran from 2017 to 2022. Roads, bridges, airports, seaports. The goal wasn't just connectivity, it was job creation at a scale the country had never attempted. Critics called it reckless spending. Economists warned about debt. But something unexpected happened. Let me tell you about Carlos Reyes. He's 34, and until 2020, he worked in a call center in Manila, earning £320 a month taking customer complaints for a US credit card company. When the pandemic hit, his company downsized. Carlos had a choice: join the queue for overseas work or retrain. He enrolled in a government-funded solar panel installation course. 6 months later, he was installing panels across Luzon, earning £450 monthly. No Dubai required. No years away from his family. Carlos isn't an isolated success story. Manufacturing grew 8.1% in 2024, the fastest rate in ASEAN, according to the Philippines Statistics Authority's March 2025 report. Factories that once struggled to find workers are now expanding. But infrastructure alone doesn't explain the 6.2% growth. Something else is happening that economists didn't predict. The Philippines now processes 15% of global business outsourcing. Not just call centers anymore. AI training, software development, medical transcription, even content moderation for social media giants. The country has become the invisible backbone of the digital economy, and almost no one outside the industry realizes how dominant they've become. Meet Jasmine Cruz. She's 28, graduated with a philosophy degree in 2019, and couldn't find work. Cafes and bookshops weren't hiring. Overseas work felt like her only option. Then she discovered free online coding courses. She learned Python, then JavaScript, then machine learning basics. By 2021, she was leading an AI training team for a San Francisco startup, earning £1,200 monthly from her flat in Manila. Here's what makes the Philippines uniquely positioned for this digital boom. English proficiency is nearly universal, thanks to decades of American influence. The time zone works perfectly. Manila operates whilst Silicon Valley sleeps, creating a 24-hour workflow that Western companies desperately need. And the cost advantage is staggering. A skilled developer in California costs £8,000 monthly. The same talent in Manila costs £1,200. The digital economy contributed 12.3% of GDP in 2024, up from 7.1% in 2019, according to the Department of Trade and Industry's February 2025 report. That's not incremental growth, that's a structural transformation. And it triggered something else. Local startups raised £890 million in venture funding in 2024, a 340% increase from 2020, per CB Insights. Filipino entrepreneurs are building apps, fintech platforms, and e-commerce systems for Southeast Asian markets. This digital boom created something unexpected, a generation that's staying home instead of leaving. Remember Maria from Dubai? Her daughter, Patricia, is 24 years old. She studied nursing specifically to follow her mother abroad. The plan was simple: get a UK or US visa, earn 10 times what she could make in the Philippines, send money home. But something happened that derailed that plan. Patricia got a job at Makati Medical Center in Manila, earning £520 monthly. That's not London wages, but in the provincial Philippines, it's enough to live well. She has her own flat, saves money, and most importantly, she sees her grandmother every weekend instead of once every 3 years. Overseas Filipino worker deployment dropped 23% from 2019 to 2024, according to the Department of Migrant Workers' January 2025 report. This isn't because of travel restrictions or stricter visa requirements. It's because local opportunities finally exist. Here's the economic multiplier that makes this shift so powerful. Every worker who stays home instead of going abroad creates 2.3 local jobs through their spending, according to McKinsey's Southeast Asia report from October 2024. They rent flats, buy groceries, eat at restaurants, hire services. That circulation of money builds an economy in ways remittances never could. Manufacturing plants in Cavite now struggle to find workers. Wages have risen 18% since 2022 because labor is genuinely scarce in certain sectors. This is what real economic development looks like. Not foreign aid, not handouts, but competitive wages driven by genuine demand. But here's what the growth numbers hide, and it's making economists nervous. The growth is concentrated. Metro Manila is booming. Cebu is thriving. But rural Mindanao? Still struggling. The top 10% captured 42% of new wealth created since 2020, according to the Philippines Institute for Development Studies' December 2024 report. Digital jobs require internet access and education. Factory jobs require proximity to industrial zones. If you're a farmer in a remote province, you're watching the boom happen on your phone screen, but you're not participating in it. Let me tell you about Roberto Lim. He's 61, a coconut farmer in Leyte. Roberto sees none of the digital revolution. He still earns £3 daily, the same as he did 5 years ago. His children moved to Manila for work, and he's alone on the farm. Infrastructure is reaching rural areas, roads are being paved, bridges are being built, but the timeline stretches to 2027, and the inequality gap is widening faster than roads are being constructed. This is the honest reality. The growth is real, verifiable, and transformative for millions. But it's uneven. The next 18 months are critical. If rural connectivity succeeds, if digital infrastructure reaches farming communities, if agricultural productivity rises through technology, the Philippines could sustain this growth. If those things don't happen, the inequality will eventually destabilize everything. So what happens next? The World Bank forecasts 6.0 to 6.5% growth for 2026 if reforms continue. The new administration, elected in 2025, is pledging Phase 2 of infrastructure spending, another £200 billion commitment targeting rural provinces and agricultural modernization. That's the optimistic scenario. Here's the risk. China tensions over the South China Sea could derail critical shipping routes. If trade flows get disrupted, export-dependent manufacturing collapses. The Philippines isn't immune to geopolitical shocks, and the South China Sea dispute remains unresolved. But if rural connectivity succeeds, if the digital infrastructure reaches every province, the Philippines could hit 7% sustained growth by 2028. That's the trajectory Malaysia followed in the 1990s, and it transformed the country from developing to developed in a single generation. Maria is considering coming home. Patricia found her a hospital job in Cebu. After 18 years apart, the family could finally reunite, made possible by an economy that finally works for people who stay. That's the real story here. Not statistics, not policy papers, but families rebuilt because opportunities exist at home. So here's my question for you. Would you take a 6% growth rate with 40% inequality, or would you prefer slower growth with fairer distribution? And if you were Patricia, would you have stayed home or still gone abroad for higher wages? Tell me in the comments, because this debate is splitting Filipino families right now. If this changed how you see Southeast Asia, subscribe.